My name's Ethan Cole, 41 years old, 12 years in the United States Army, 8 of them with Special Operations Command. 2 tours in Afghanistan, 1 in Iraq, 1 in Syria. I've seen the best of men and the worst of orders. When I finally came home, I thought I'd earned peace. Turns out peace doesn't come in a discharge envelope. It's not something you can unpack next to your medals. Peace comes only when the ghosts stop talking, and mine never did. When I got back to Virginia, I didn't have much, just a beat-up truck, a storage locker full of old gear, and a small pension that barely covered rent. My wife had left 3 years earlier, said she couldn't handle the distance, the silences, the nightmares. I didn't blame her. I wouldn't have stayed with me either. But I still had one thing, loyalty. To my brothers, to my team, to the man who led us through hell and brought most of us back, Captain Marcus Reed. Marcus was the kind of leader you'd follow into a storm, sharp, calm, calculating. The kind of man who made you believe orders were sacred. So when I found out he'd started a private security firm, Reed Global Solutions, and wanted me on his team, I didn't hesitate. He said, "We'll protect the people our government forgot. Cole, veterans, contractors, civilians in war zones. No politics, no red tape." It sounded noble. It sounded like a mission, and I still needed one. Reed Global's offices were in DC glass walls, steel furniture, everything polished and quiet. He hired a lot of familiar faces, men I'd served with, men I trusted. Our contracts were mostly overseas security oil fields in Nigeria, shipping routes in the Gulf, infrastructure in Ukraine. But Marcus always had one rule: don't ask who we're really working for. At first, I didn't question it. When you've lived on classified missions long enough, not knowing feels normal. But one night in Lagos, we were running perimeter detail for what we were told was a communications compound. Inside that compound, I saw cages, not weapon storage, people, locals men, some barely 20 zip-tied, blindfolded, dehydrated. I asked our contact who they were. He said, "Non-compliant personnel." When I pressed him, he just smiled. "You're being paid to keep the peace." Soldier, not started. That night, I couldn't sleep. The sound of their coughing carried through the vents. It reminded me of the prisoners we'd guarded in Helmand. Taliban, sure. But even then, they got water. When we got back stateside, I confronted Marcus. "What the hell were we guarding out there, Cap?" He didn't flinch. "Intel transfer site," he said. "Human intel." He stared at me a long time before answering. "Sometimes information comes from people who need to be persuaded. Ethan, you know that better than anyone." I left his office without another word. Something in my chest cracked open that night. 3 months later, one of our old squad mates, Danny Lopez, called me. Danny had stayed on with Reed Global after I'd pulled back from field work. He sounded nervous. "Cole, something's wrong. Marcus isn't who you think he is. He's moving money through shell contracts tied to the State Department. Billions. They're using veterans as cover." I asked him where he got that. He said, "The same place they got me, internal servers." I found files I wasn't supposed to see. Transfers, photos, manifests. "What kind of manifests?" I asked. "Cargo shipments labeled humanitarian aid, except the containers are full of weapons." Then the line went dead. Next morning, "I saw it on the news. Private jet crash. 3 dead pilot. Security consultant and Daniel Lopez listed as mission loss." I didn't believe it for a second. Danny never flew anywhere without telling someone. So I started digging old. Habits die hard. Every operator keeps backups. I still had access to the encrypted cloud we'd used during deployments. It linked to the same comms Reed Global had repurposed, and just like I thought, the archives were still live, buried under fake contracts and scanned invoices. I found a directory marked Albatross. Inside were documents, shipments, dates, names, and photos. Civilians, children, wounded, all labeled as collateral assets. They weren't protecting civilians, they were running weapons into conflict zones, funding both sides, cashing the checks through humanitarian NGOs. And Marcus Reed, the man who taught me loyalty, was orchestrating all of it. I didn't go to the FBI right away. You learn quick that corruption runs deep, and walking into the wrong office can get you buried before you finish your sentence. So I went to someone I knew wouldn't look away, Sarah Whitman, a former investigative journalist who'd covered our unit in Afghanistan. We'd stayed in touch, mostly through short emails about veteran aid programs. When she met me at a diner off Route 29, she looked tired, like she hadn't slept in days. "Ethan, what is this about?" she asked. I slid a thumb drive across the table. "Proof," I said. "Reed Global's moving weapons, not aid, and they're using the Pentagon's logistics system to do it." She scanned through the files on her laptop, eyes wide. These serial numbers match shipments that went through state oversight last quarter. This could burn people in Congress. "I'm not after Congress," I said. "I'm after Reed." She looked up. "You're not planning to go rogue, are you?" "I'm not planning anything yet," I lied. That night, I parked outside Reed Global's headquarters. Watched the lights go out one floor at a time. He was still up there. I could see his office light glowing through tinted glass. I almost went in, almost. But instead I waited. The next morning, I received an email from an address I didn't recognize. Subject line, "You shouldn't have opened Albatross." No message, just an attachment, a photo. It was my storage locker. Door open, contents gone. That's when I knew. He knew. Over the next week, I was followed. SUVs with tinted windows parked just long enough to make me doubt my sanity. Calls with no voice, just static. My phone's GPS kept re-enabling itself after I'd shut it off. I went off-grid. Cheap motel outside Richmond. Cash payments. No digital trace. Sarah kept digging, but we kept it analog. Burner phones. Face-to-face meetings. Then she called one night, voice shaking. "Ethan," one of my contacts at the Post, confirmed it. "Reed Global's contracts are tied to a senator on the Defense Committee. They're laundering money through reconstruction projects overseas." "How deep?" "Deep enough that if you push too hard, you disappear." I laughed, but it wasn't humor. Guess I'll have to push just right. I went back to what I knew best. Planning missions. Objectives. Intel. Execution. No bullets this time. Just information. I built a digital dead man switch. If I didn't log in every 24 hours, the Albatross files would go public automatically. To 3 journalists and 2 members of Congress whose reputations were clean. Then I started poking the bear. I sent Marcus a single message from a secure line. "Your ghost still breathes." He replied within minutes. "Ethan, let's talk, face to face." We met in an empty hangar at Quantico, neutral ground. He looked older, sharper around the edges. "Why, Ethan?" he asked. "After everything we've done, after everything we built." "What we built?" I said. "You built a pipeline of blood. I built trust, and you used it." He shook his head. "You think you're the first soldier to be disillusioned? The world runs on deals, not ideals. We did what we had to do." "No, Marcus," I said quietly. "You did what you wanted to do, and you used us to do it." He sighed, almost disappointed. "You were always too righteous. That's why I didn't have you eliminated when I had the chance." He smiled. "But don't worry, I fixed that mistake." I heard movement, boots behind me. 3 men armed, I didn't move. "Think this through." "Marcus," I said, "kill me, and the truth goes live." He frowned. "What truth?" I grinned. "The one uploading right now." Behind him, a laptop on his own desk beeped. His secure network, compromised. Sarah had triggered the upload. Every file, every manifest, every payment trail, all going to the press in real time. Marcus lunged for the laptop. By the time he yanked the power cord, it was too late. The screen flashed one last line, "Upload complete." By morning, it was everywhere. Headlines, private defense firm linked to illegal arms trade. Senator under investigation for corruption and war profiteering. And in the middle of it, Marcus Reed. He didn't get arrested immediately. Men like him never do, but his empire began to crumble. Contracts suspended, accounts frozen. Half his staff turned state's evidence. Sarah went into federal protection after the story broke. She called me once. "You did it," she said softly. "No," I said, "we just told the truth." They tried to drag my name into it, too, but I'd kept records. Clean and clear. The feds cleared me, quietly, off the record. Then they offered me a consulting role. I turned it down. I'd had enough of missions. 6 months later, I drove back to that same diner on Route 29. Ordered black coffee. No sugar, no milk. Outside, the world kept spinning. Different wars, different lies. But for the first time in years, I felt still. Marcus's trial made headlines for a month. He pled not guilty, claimed he was framed by disgruntled former employees. The jury didn't buy it. 20 years federal. When the verdict came in, I didn't cheer. I didn't feel victory. Just relief, because for me, the war was never about enemies. It was about accountability. And for the first time, Someone actually faced it. I still get letters sometimes, from old squad mates, from vets who read about the case. They call me brave. I'm not. I just refuse to stay silent. Some nights I sit on the porch, dog at my feet, watching the horizon fade. There's a kind of peace in knowing the mission's finally over. But if I've learned anything, it's that the mission never really ends. It just changes uniforms.